Yo, what is cracking? What's popping? What's shaking, everybody? Happy Friday. It is another episode of the Comic Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace. I am Chill, and I'm here with my co host, Grace. Grace, how are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. It's like a nice Friday, super easy, fun week.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're talking about Black Adam. I got to go watch it like Wednesday night all by myself, which is kind of fun. Um, and yeah, so all in all, doing pretty good. What about yourself?
I'm doing all right. We're actually going to talk about a few things, like because say a couple trailers came out this week from the MCU, so I do want to start out by talking about either the Guardians trailer or the what was the other one?
Ant Man.
The Ant Man trailer for sure, and then we can the bulk of today we're going to be talking about Black Adam. We're going to give it a review, and Grace and I we both saw it on Wednesday. I saw it Wednesday night. I saw it late, like I saw a 10:30 show, so it was a little late. I was kind of tired, but I made it through. You know what I'm saying? What time did you end up seeing it?
9:10. Pretty much, I like got the kiddo into bed, and then like I rushed out the door before she could like wake up asking for anything else. And so yeah, like I watched it at 9:10. Same thing. Like by the end of it, I'm like, dude, I'm so tired. I would wake up in 4 hours for like work. But this is what we do for you guys. This is
Yep,
what we do.
definitely. All right, so say starting off, did you want to talk about Guardians or Ant Man first?
Let's go with Guardians. I've seen both the trailers. I've seen it once, and that's it.
That's
Just
fine.
because it's been so busy. So I'll kind of let you take the lead on this one.
I've only seen both once, and I think I saw them maybe 2 days ago. So then maybe it may be just as fresh as you. But say, starting out just from what I can recall, because this is gonna be the holiday special, so I can assume it's probably gonna be just as long as their Werewolf by Night, maybe like 50 minutes to an hour or so. And it seems like it's just gonna be like a fun Christmas movie. Like I feel like no matter what, the ongoing joke with Guardians, which I feel like it's been brought up almost every time we've seen them, is the Kevin Bacon joke, and we're finally getting a Kevin Bacon cameo in here. So I think that's actually pretty funny that they're doing this.
I mean, the concept is so hilarious because, yes, I agree. I feel like it's going to be like an hour short. This will bleed straight into the events of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So it seems like it's going to be super lighthearted, but I wonder if towards the end of this short, it's actually going to take a turn into something a little bit more ominous because,
Mm,
in the talks of
Gamora.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it's gonna be like we're being warned heavily that this like we're gonna be in tears. Crazy stuff is gonna go on. We're not going to see the same group of Guardians after that film. So I feel like this is going to be kind of like the soft, playful colorfulness before the storm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, like it's been an ongoing joke because Peter Quill, like Kevin Bacon, is like the standard when it comes to acting. He hasn't been on Earth for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the concept of them wanting to give Quill something nice because obviously, like he's really going through it because of the loss of Gamora the first time and kind of the second time. Because he got to kind of connect with a earlier version of Gamora, but obviously like she's very different. She didn't go through the whole journey that these guys went through with the one that passed away in their timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot, and so like as a gift, they're like, what is the best thing we could give them? So they go to Earth to like basically kidnap Kevin Bacon, and it's just so funny, and so I'm really excited for it. And I think it's just gonna be it's gonna be like the what's the term for it? It's like something before the storm.
Calm.
There you go. It's gonna be the calm before the storm.
Let me ask you, how do you feel about MCU following the holiday schedule, because they gave us Hawkeye around Christmas and it had like Christmas aspects to it, and then they gave us Werewolf by Night for like the Halloween season, and now we're back into the holiday season, and now they're giving us this special.
I mean, I love it. Like, I think that's kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That they're like circling the stories around like based on like the time period. I mean, I'm sure there's like major discussions of like, well, does this make sense? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure it's like, okay, like it'd be cool to make this like during the drawing board process, like it's release this at Christmas time, let's make it Christmassy themed. But I'm sure the story is going to be genuine to what they're trying to create, so I don't think it's
Mhm.
overshadowed by it, like I like it a lot. I think it's going to be good.
What if, coincidentally, right? This calm before the storm. What is this? What if the storm is really just on some like James Gunn is out? I don't know if he's out officially with Marvel, but he's in with DC, so he may be out with Marvel. So he just may be just on some like, F this, I'm good, I'm solid. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Well, like
I'm CEO over here.
James Gunn started this kind of like this trilogy, if you will, of Guardians. Like he's had like the timeline from the pitch of the original,
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely going to be a completed project. Like, yes, James Gunn has submitted his resignation for Marvel, his 2 weeks, if you will. And there's a specific date that I think Kevin Feige quoted, like, oh, yes, I'm so happy for his contribution to DC. We still have him until, I'm just going to throw out a random ass date, but like March 25th,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's ours until then. And after that, we're going to watch absolutely everything this man puts out. So we're excited for him or something like that. So, um, yeah, like this is going to be a completed project for sure. Like I'm excited, but I'm also like not prepared because the panel at Comic-Con, when it came out for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think every single person that spoke, everybody up on that panel was either on like the verge of tears or full on
You
tears. And I
mentioned
think
that
it's,
before, yeah.
yeah, and I think it was Sean Gunn who was like, the reason we're all here so emotional is because we effing care,
Mm-hmm.
and this is such a great, I think, story for the team. And it's, we're gonna lose people. Like that's very evident. Like someone or many seem to not like they're not gonna be making out of this battlefield or out of
Mm-hmm.
this movie. So it's scary to me. You guys on the show who've been following this, Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite. Like I literally have Gamora tattooed on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm nervous to see this, but I'm so excited. I feel like the quote that keeps coming in my head is like, what is grief if not love persevering? And so I think that this is going to be an amazing send off for these characters that we've loved for so long.
Mm-hmm.
This wait has been so long. I think next to Doctor Strange, or maybe this beats Doctor Strange. This has been like the longest wait for like a continuation of the story. So it's long overdue, and I'm excited, but I'm also so nervous.
Doctor Strange came out before Infinity War. Infinity War was 2018, so it's been 4+ years since Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I think actually this is running on like the 5 year mark or something like that. It might actually be the longest awaited like between sequels.
Okay, very interesting. Um, so with like as far as kind of just recapping and talking about this trailer, I think if anything with this special, it's going to be, I would say, just a good short, just like Werewolf by Night. I think if they're gonna give us the 50 minutes, it's just going to be 50 minutes of Guardians comedy, and uh, yeah, I don't expect much more from it, but I do expect it to be entertaining.
Yeah, like I think anything with James Gunn has like there's a lot of credibility behind the name.
Yeah.
And Guardians of the Galaxy has such a run, like I don't see why it wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be good. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be such a great we have so many things coming up. We have Wakanda Forever, and then we have the Guardians of the Galaxy volume, or I'm sorry, like
Holiday
holiday
special.
special. And I'm assuming, is the holiday special considered part of this current phase? Do you know? Because I feel like they definitively said that Wakanda Forever would be the wrap. So would that make Guardians of the Galaxy the first project on the new phase? Do you have any ideas
Um,
on that?
that I don't know, but if I were just to throw out an answer, I would just say I would hope not. I wouldn't want Phase 5 to start out like this. I would want it to start out on Ant-Man and the Wasp, being that this is the multiversal saga. Let's dive right into something that is going to be related into the multiverse.
Yeah, so I guess it would be considered for this. So that like actually and might end up being the last project for this phase then to
Yeah,
wrap it up. you know.
Yeah.
And actually I think it's kind of cool because it does bridge, I think, the two phases, right? Because we know that this project is going to end on somewhat of a cliffhanger because it's going to bleed into the events of Guardians of
Mm-hmm.
the Galaxy Volume 3. And so it might actually be a good bridge into the new phase.
Um, Real quick, I'm sorry. I'm gonna actually go off on a random topic real quick. I do want to give a shout out because I texted you the story that happened today, and I just wanted to shout out this person real fast. So I was just filling up my tank at the gas station, and then I go inside to pay, and then I was wearing our Comic Cinematic Universe hat, and the attendant there, initially he was just like, "Oh, what is that?" It almost reminds me of some like Nickelodeon, and I didn't know how to take it at first. You know, he was like, it just kind of reminds me of that. I was like, okay, well, it's kind of just this podcast me and my partner do in terms of reviewing like comic book shows and movies and things like that. He's like, oh yeah, man, I love that nerd shit, and like he said it just like that. He's like, I love that nerd shit, and are y'all gonna talk about Ant-Man? And I coincidentally. I told him, I was like, yeah, we're actually going to talk about the trailer that just came out today, and he was like, oh yeah, and then Black Panther is right around the corner, like it's about to come out. So with that excitement of just kind of him feeling the vibes and actually looking to actually he had me going to on his phone onto the YouTube page just to subscribe. So Marquise, what up? Shout out to Marquise. Appreciate the love. We both do appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy everything that we're going to be chatting about from now until the end of time.
Forever. I love that story so much. I was reading it right before hopping on, and I thought it was so wholesome. You know what I mean? Such a wholesome story. I love that so much.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So being that he kind of brought up Ant-Man, let's kind of segue into talking about the Ant-Man trailer.
Let's do it.
Okay, because this one either came out on Monday or Tuesday, but this is the trailer for like that just had me super giddy because we have yet to get any reference to Kang since Loki, and we kind of established that Loki came out when early last year. It was like February of last year, right? So we haven't seen the actor Jonathan Majors in the MCU for almost a year, almost a little over a year, almost 2 years, So we finally get a visual of this variant, this Kang variant. This is the actual Kang because before we know him to be He Who Remains, but now we get Kang. And honestly, after reading, or I'm still not even finished with that comic, but even reading through half of it, just the look of it, the look of Kang, it's like Marvel's costume design department crushed the outfit.
I love seeing like the adaptations or like the way that they pull them from the comics because we've seen characters that don't have, I think, the like typical comic book
Mm-hmm.
variant, and then they almost make joke and they like I think you see this with Hawkeye. They then pay homage or have like twinkles of like the OG, like almost like over the top costumes, you know what I mean? It's really nice because obviously this is such a huge part of storytelling, is just like the wardrobe, you know. Especially when you look at superheroes and villains, like that's iconic, you know. And so I haven't read that comic, but I love when that does happen. With this trailer, I mean, it's so exciting. Well, first of all, like I love that they made like they're referencing like Scott Lang's time working at
what was it?
Baskin Robbins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So funny. Like the same manager who he worked for was there. Like what was like the thing that he made a statement like Baskin Robbins always finds out. You know what I mean? Just it's
Right.
just like such a fun banter. And I'm so happy that they brought it in here. And I love how, you know, Ant-Man has saved the world. You know, he was the one who was so starstruck when he met the Avengers in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And even after like the events of Endgame, literally being the catalyst that brought everyone back.
Mm-hmm.
And people still can't remember his name. They're like, "Hi, Spider-Man." Like, you know, it's just so funny to me, you know?
Yeah, I love the fact that like say he's playing the part of the comic relief of the MCU, you know, because I feel like if anything, Thor he's kind of switched since Ragnarok to get into the funny, but Ant-Man has been established as comedic from day one, you know, so they're kind of sticking Paul Rudd being just a funny character. This does look like it does have its serious moments because um, I guess the premise is Scott Stoddard somehow finds a way to make a, I don't know if it's a beacon or something that kind of leads into the quantum realm or whatnot, and everybody gets sucked in. And this is something that the Van Dyne mom, her name is Janet. Is Janet Van Dyne, right?
Yes.
She kind of mentioned that she left a part of her story in the quantum realm out, you know, and now it piques my curiosity to for one, like everybody in the quantum realm that we see in the trailer, right? Does everybody, are they human? If not, um, do they possess power like characteristics like Janet? Because while she was down there, of course, she had to adapt, and then with that, she got power down there somehow. I forgot how they explained it in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but now she
like
got some tricks.
the energy of like the quantum realm, and she used like a specific, she kind of worded it in a very particular way, like beyond evolution or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when we see Scott Lang's daughter, what's her name again?
Hope.
Cassie.
Oh no, Cassie.
Yeah, Cassie, you know, she's like so excited because, you know, she's very much blending into, you know, the family with like technology, even though she's like not related to Hank Pym. Like she's apparently like the gene rubbed off, and she created this beacon for the into the quantum realm. And you already get a sensation that there's something that Janet Van Dyne maybe didn't share, because she's immediately like, no, we can't go there, you know,
Right.
or like end it. And obviously they do get sucked in, and so it does beg to question, like, what is it that she doesn't want everybody to know? And it seems like maybe she worked under Kang, and Kang, we know, is kind of a sketchy dude. So I don't know, like there's obviously something ominous that like she didn't want them to know, or was hoping they'd never find out.
Right.
And she's going to end up having to face that. And I really like this because in terms of plot and story, I mean, I know that Ant-Man and the Wasp, like the second one, it's all about bringing her back, but she hasn't played like a huge active role in any of the storylines just yet. And Janet Van Dyne, I mean, you know, yes, the original was Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, like those were the original Ant-Man and the Wasp, and obviously we're following the storyline of like that second generation with Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne. But it's nice to see that she's becoming an active part of the plot, and I'm excited to see that, especially because it's like, the actress, like, come on, you know, like you can't just have her be like the pretty picture in the corner and then not use her. You know what I mean? Like it's so I'm excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think that those are some of the films I've always really enjoyed, just because they have like I mean, come on, I like Luis, and it's so light, but especially with what we saw in Endgame, you know, Scott Lang when he first sees Cassie again, like I'm sure there's going to be some weight to it, you know, like in a way that I don't think we've seen in prior ones, like kind of like the serious tone that you kind of alluded to.
Let me ask you this though. You brought up a very interesting topic that just popped up right when you said it. How do you feel about the MCU modernizing these characters? Because now that you kind of mentioned that, Janet Van Dyne, she was the original Wasp with Hank Pym, and let's say today, they're on the older side, and then they did that with, of course, the black super soldier from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I can say they did that, of course, with Steve Rogers, to where he got frozen for 70 years, but he's from that past. And then if you think about each one of these characters that I mentioned, all of their comics were kind of set in that time, you know, in the 1950s, 1960s, and stuff like that, you know. So how do you feel that like the MCU is now kind of modernizing these older characters and now kind of making way for newer characters like Scott Lang, and then Hope Van Dyne, and now you're getting Cassie in an Ant-Man suit. You know, who now we can assume that she can become another part of a team like the Avengers or something like that.
Another generation. Well, I
Right.
mean, keep in mind that is exactly the time period these stories like were made.
Mm-hmm.
Ant-Man originated in, it's called Tales to Astonish, I think in like 1962.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like it makes sense. It's like, you know, you can reset the stories as much as you want. Like they do that a lot with Spider-Man. Like the stories stay within a certain age period.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously writers have explored with like an older version of Spider-Man and things like that too. But it's just I think another tool that they've used to kind of continue these characters in the modern world beyond like, you know, like 50 years, 60 years for, and
Mm-hmm.
even more for some of these characters. You know, keep in mind like a lot of these date back from like 1930 and 40s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's an appropriate thing to kind of be able to still pass on that mantle and continue to use that character, to blend it with like the modern world. And DC's does has done this too. Like Black Canary, has been around forever, and so like for them to do kind of like that second generation thing has just been a tool that they've used as a part of the storytelling to just
Mm-hmm.
continue the mantle. You know, with Black Canary, I think you can see it in Harley Quinn, the Birds of Prey film,
Mm-hmm.
where the Black Canary we meet is the second generation. Her mom was the original, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a tool that they've used to kind of just keep the stories coming, you know. And so I like it. I think it's great, and I love that they're able to use both of the at this point the three generations of these like Ant-Man variants, if you will, in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU. You know, I think it's really cool that they've been able to incorporate all of it and almost pay homage to that um, tool that they use for their storytelling. You know?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting just because I think some characters you can and some characters you can't. I think if anything, Spider-Man is a character that, as of right now, introducing him into the MCU with Homecoming, we do have to get an origin story because there's no other Spider-Man uh, before him. But if they do decide they want to take this into the other versions of Spider-Man, like I don't know them all for sure, but I know there's like a futuristic one and there's the one that's like kind of punk rock and all that, you know. So those can kind of follow suit like after, let's say, a Tom Holland. It's like I just think it's interesting that they've thought about it. They've taken the time to where let's not put Janet Van Dyne as the Wasp, and then let's just actually make it her daughter to be the current Wasp along with Scott Lang instead of Hank Pym.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that was done in the comics, and I love that they were able to adapt that into like the MCU. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it also has to do with the expectations that the audiences have, because if it was like if they did something like this with Spider-Man, even though in the comics like there is like a storyline where Spider-Man and Mary Jane have a daughter, her name is Mayday Parker, she's a Spider-Woman as well. There's a she has like a baby brother. And so, you know, that's definitely something they could have done for Spider-Man. But being that like the audiences have a certain expectation for certain characters,
Mm-hmm.
and you're introducing them into the MCU, like, you know, let's just think Tom Holland's intro into the MCU with like Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense that they would just go this more of a traditional route because that's the expectation. Ant-Man, we don't have like in terms of like the general media and pop culture, we don't really have an expectation for it. So it was so cool that they did do the like take that as an opportunity to show the different layers,
Mm-hmm.
and almost pay homage to just like how many generations this has like penetrated in terms of just the fandom, you know, back from
Yeah.
like 1930s and 1960s, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very cool, and I think that they're to kind of continue it into this next generation now with Cassie. It's another thing. I will say I'm still bitter. I think we did talk about it a while back, but maybe
Yeah,
when
I know exactly what you're about to say. You're salty about what
the
the actor?
recasting.
Yeah, the
It's just
actress.
like I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way that they recasted this character. The actress that they casted for Endgame. I mean, you know, we saw her ever so briefly, but she like did a wonderful job as Cassie. And I think especially being that this is such an emotional moment where like Scott Lang is realizing he missed so much of his daughter's life. In addition to he missed so much of her early life just because he was in prison. And now again, like it's so heartbreaking. It's so such an amazing scene. And I don't know, I feel like it disconnects you and looking into this now, you know? And also, like, kind of the rationale behind it. Like, maybe it's because the actress they originally picked isn't necessarily well known. This actress has kind of a little bit more of a history, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's a little bit more
A resume.
recognizable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it just seems very, like, I'm going to use the word sleazy just for a lack of a better word. And also, like, I can only imagine the actress, like, making her way into the MCU, like, getting this role. You know, obviously, like, they don't tell you very much, but if you're in the fandom, you kind of understand where they're leading into with these characters. You know, like the Young Avengers, Cassie Lang is one of those. Like, you would kind of, like, I feel like, have a vision of where your career as an actress is going. And then for them to completely kind of, like, swipe that under the rug and recast
Mm-hmm.
is wild. And when this happened, I remember it was a whole thing on TikTok. I think it was TikTok, because the actress didn't know this happened. She had to, like, find out, and so
Mm.
I just that left such a sour taste in my mouth. Nothing against the actress that was casted. I mean, what an opportunity! Like, who wouldn't take that? You know, and I'm sure
Right.
she's do just fine with it. The trailer looked amazing. It's a piece that, like, for me, kind of irks me, because recasting is not something they do very lightly, you know?
They've only done it, I would say, two other times, and
Yeah.
that's only been with the Incredible Hulk and James Rhodes. But I don't see anybody kind of bring that up, like in terms of like say your aches and pains for this recasting. Like I don't really hear you kind of bringing up like you don't feel any type of way that they changed out here. Was it Terrence Howard for Don Cheadle when it comes to
Yeah, because
James Rhodes?
I didn't like, for example, the actor who played Rhodey beforehand. It's not like he, like, okay, if they change Rhodey, like the Rhodey we have now, I'd have
Mm-hmm.
a feeling. You know what I mean? Even if it
Mm-hmm.
was way, but obviously now it's like we have so many years with him, it made no sense. It would make no sense for them to recast him. But
Mm-hmm.
let's just say after Iron Man 2, they recasted that character, I'd be upset because, like, he did so well. Like, I feel like I didn't get so ingrained with the previous one, and I feel like I can say the same thing for the Incredible Hulk. And in the Incredible Hulk, it's also a whole nother thing, because I feel like they've recasted that character quite a bit, and so I feel like for that reason, it's like it didn't bother me at all. You know what I mean? So, but I think it's like now, especially, like, we've had so many years into the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
and also that's early years of MCU. Like, they're still establishing some things, and I feel like that makes sense to me. But it's like we're already in, like, the second saga. Like, it just feels funny to me, especially because, like, it's like the casting department does so well. Like, what did they regret so heavily that they really felt like they needed to recast Cassie? Like, you know, they already knew what the
Wait, but stop,
future
stop
held.
right there. Just stop right there. Just because now other side of the coin, we in Endgame only got maybe 3 minutes of Cassie in two scenes. Her walking up to the door to see her dad, and then watching the fireworks at the end of the movie. So you have no idea in terms of what her acting like or what her acting is like in the MCU versus us getting like a Edward Norton, and then we we now have Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, you know, and then we get a full movie with Terrence Howard, but then boom, switch to Don Cheadle. So it's like I get how you can be upset, but I don't get how when we didn't even really get much out of this Cassie Lang.
No, I feel like my footing still stands in a sense. Like, I understand what you're saying, but like I said, like, earlier, like, those casting switches were so early in, like, the MCU. I feel like it's just a different expectation. And at this point, like, the casting department is pristine. Like, every character that's been casted for their heroes, like, it's astonishing, like, how well, like, when we think of like, I mean, just Scott Lang is an example. He is Ant-Man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's so pristine and accurate. Like, I wonder what was so grossly, like, out of, like, par about this casting that they really felt like they needed to switch it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to know that they already had a plan for her future in the MCU, like, regarding this character, you know? So it wouldn't be like a off the fly, not really thinking too much into the future kind of a casting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes me wonder what was so, like, big that they felt like they needed to switch it. Unless it was that they maybe just didn't have that foresight just yet that they would like to use Cassie, and so they just kind of casted it, like, without as much thought. And then when they realized they wanted to continue her story in a different way, they're like, okay, like maybe we should look into something else. You know, so it's just it begs a couple questions to me. And I think just the method it was done is what leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Just because like I think about this actress who was casted, you know. Not to say this film's not going to be great. I feel like the actress that is playing Cassie right now is going to do great. Like she's a very established actress. I've seen her in a couple of things. It's just something that leaves a sour taste in my mouth is all.
So, do you have a sour taste in your mouth when it comes to the girl from Aquawoman or Aquaman?
Um, um,
Heard?
Amber Heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, it's like there's
The
no
thing.
hiding why that was done. There's no hiding why that was done. It's the same thing with Ezra Miller. Like
Mm.
we know why these recastings, or you know, I know with Ezra Miller, it's still a big TBD for DC,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like a secret why this was happening. Like if we heard like, okay, the actress that was originally casted as Cassie was like a horrible human who did a lot of horrible things, then
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be questioning why they recast. Like it makes sense, you know. So I think like those situations are just a little different. Like it's not like I don't think it's a like the same kind of a case, you know, or maybe that's just why I feel different
I'm
about
just
it,
hearing a whole bunch of case by case situations. You know, I'm giving you
because it
similar
is case by
situations,
case.
but you're just like, that's different.
Because it
That's
is case
different.
by case, it's very different. Like that's exactly what I was saying. Like I have so much curiosity as to what was the catalyst that made them feel so strongly they needed to recast this role, especially knowing how great the casting department is for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big question. When it comes to Amber Heard, Ezra Miller, it's not we know why. Like we know, like the fandom has demanded this to happen just because of the things that have happened in the real world. You know, like there's not a question about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm saying, and it is kind of case by case in this scenario.
Man, I don't know how I feel.
You can feel however you want. That's valid.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to come back to the trailer just because there were specific moments that I want to talk about. So say we get a full-on view of it looks like a city in the quantum realm. Now, why we got that here in the trailer and why we didn't get that in Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's a curiosity. It makes me kind of think that with Janet Van Dyne in the quantum realm, maybe she this whole time has been chilling in the outskirts, hopefully hoping that Scott Lang would somehow connect and get her out of there, you know? And with the city being seen on screen in this trailer, now it kind of begs the question for me just to ask, this quantum realm, the city itself, it looks not as clean but very similar to the realm of the TVA, right? And we know that that realm was put together by He Who Remains. So say here, being that we're assuming that Kang may be the man in charge down there, and that may be the reason why Hope Van Dyne, or not Hope Van Dyne, Janet Van Dyne is kind of scared to even go back. Can we assume that the realm of the TVA is just a different realm or a different, let's say, variant of the quantum realm?
I would not say that the quantum realm is the same thing as the TVA.
Okay.
Those definitely look to be like two distinctive things. However, like leaning into what you were saying, so the city that we see in this trailer is actually like delivering on something the fandom has been theorizing for quite some time, because there was a shot of a city. I don't remember if it was in the first Ant-Man or if it was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but in one of those films when we do see like the quantum realm, there is a depiction of a city of sorts in a scene. And a lot of people wondered if that was the TVA, especially, of course, once we got Loki and understood what the TVA was and kind of learned that it was a, you know, realm of its own, if you will. And so this is kind of a delivery on that. So it may be squashing the theory that that city we saw in the earlier films is TVA. However, like, I thought you were going to ask, like, is this the TVA, like the city that we're kind of diving into? I thought that
No.
was the question you were going to ask. But Yeah, so
No, no. The only reason why I ask is because He Who Remains, that variant is, I would say, a much more mature version of the Kang that we got here in this video. And I would think that being that this is beyond the quote unquote war of the universes in Loki, right? And we have this variant that remained, then I would assume that he put some time into cleaning and designing and making a city better just in a realm of time. And that's where I'm assuming that there's some type of relation to the quantum realm.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that, and I wonder if like maybe because I really don't think the quantum realm and the TVA are the same. They seem like very distinct, to like different entities.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we don't really know exactly where the TVA is. Like I wonder if the TVA resides within the quantum realm. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm wondering because I feel like that'd be kind of similar to what you're saying. Like we know he who remains to be in the TVA. We see this Kang, which is a variant, obviously, of He Who Remains in this little city in the quantum realm. So it's interesting. Like it begs a lot of questions, and maybe that is somewhat of a connection. It's definitely something that is left to be answered. So a lot of area for theories for sure, and I like kind of what you're asking for
All right.
regards to that.
All right. I'm gonna pull up a. Actually, no, it's not too distinctive here. It's like an image of the Kang statue that we got in Loki, right? So he's wearing the same type of gear, let's say, outfit, costume, or whatever. Not a costume. What's the joke that we've said before in the past? It's not a costume, it's a uniform by
Yeah.
Dwight Schrute.
Yeah.
But it's the same uniform, and even though like we can get beyond this point, it just looks like if anything, I'm now just going to. That's just. I'm gonna make this as my prediction. I would say if anything, because the statue is made after a Kang. I know it's not made after this Kang that we saw in this trailer, but if it is, then I think my theory may be on point in terms of this being more so a fast forward from the city that we've seen here in this trailer.
Saying that maybe the city that we're seeing is like a variant of the TVA. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Like, and it's like residing within the quantum realm. Like, it would make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I like it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna throw it up, but I just had to see. I wanted to see if this statue had the distinctive scars that we got here, and it's too pixelated to tell. But I'm going by uniform here, so who knows?
We've made theories on less, guys. I think this is pretty damn solid. Like, I feel like that's a really solid prediction for sure.
Okay. Was there anything else in the trailer that caught your eye that you wanted to bring up?
Not that I remember.
Okay,
There
right. We
might be
both saw
more,
it
and
one
I do.
time.
We can talk about it as it gets closer, but no, not right now.
Uh, Cassie and a wasp suit. Janet Van Dyne being shook. So I'm assuming she knows Kang or who Kang
Oh
is.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Um, every Kang is is a descendant of Mr. Fantastic, right? Is that the origin of Kang? He is
They're they are
Richards.
related. I think when we've looked it up, it's always been kind of foggy.
Okay.
But we know that the bloodline is connected in some way, like a distant relative or something of the
Mm-hmm.
sorts. Because we do know that Kang comes from the future, and he came into this time period, and then started doing things here. That's as much as I can recall. But obviously, you've been reading some of the comics, so I'll kind of lean on your expertise for that.
Well, my question would be now, just as variants are concerned, would you assume or do you know if variants come in different races? I know they may come in different shapes and sizes as we've seen with Spider-Man, but do you think it would cross the racial barrier as well?
It's crossed the spectrum of species. Chill, like Loki crocodile. Do you not remember this?
Mm,
Yes, there's no limits because I think we even see like a black Loki, we see a crocodile Loki, we see a young and old. So it definitely doesn't seem to be limited within a specific race or gender or even species. You know, so it
Okay.
seems like everything is fair game. You know.
Okay, I was just kind of thinking. I was like, all right, well, hopefully we get like a Black Mr. Fantastic, but that's a stretch. But we'll see.
There is much that can have happened between Mr. Fantastic and King for
Mm-hmm.
this. We just need one.
Sure, sure, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much everything that I saw in the trailer. Trailer looks excellent, and it's our first real continuation of the multiversal conversation, because I think maybe since Doctor Strange, everything else afterwards hasn't really been of that sort. Everything's kind of been its own thing, going from what, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, and everything like that. So we haven't really had much multiversal talk since. So that's bringing that back into the equation. So if that's how they're going to start off Phase 5, then I hope that the following movies that they have on the schedule can follow suit, just so we can see how these other heroes can react to the multiversal situation that we have going on.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, we talked about this a lot. We've been having a lot of like phase 5 discussions recently. And I think that this phase, like phase 5, is going to connect a lot of dots, connect a lot of characters, connect a lot of stories and teams
Mm-hmm.
to kind of build up into the following phase, which is very good, very much going to build up into like the big battles, you know? And so I feel like these next projects following Black Panther are definitely going to be under that umbrella.
Prediction question: Will will Wong show up in Ant Man
Oh my
Quantumania?
god. You know something? I mean, I don't see how he'd be connected, but he's been connected to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't doubt it. You know, maybe as a like mid-credit or post-credit scene at least, like I would not be surprised. He's been kind of like the Nick Fury of this space.
Yeah,
So,
I
you
like
know
that. I
something?
like that a lot.
For all the complaints we've had about the lack of connection, like they've at least used him in that sense. You know, it's connected
Mm-hmm.
Shang-Chi to She-Hulk and, you know, everything in the middle. So yes, for as much as we complain about the lack of connection, we got to remember Wong, you know,
Yeah, the Sorcerer Supreme.
the
He
Sorcerer
he
Supreme.
he should figure out how to get into the quantum realm and just pop up, say what's up. You know what I'm saying, and then peace out. Be
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's too much, Ant Man. Y'all got this. I'm going back to Carmitage or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So we are moving on. We are going to get into today's main topic, even though this topic went on for 45 minutes, which is awesome, talking about trailers. But today, our main topic is Black Adam. So I think we're going to do it how we've done in the past. Let's go spoiler free review first, and then into the spoilers after.
Sounds great.
Okay, kick it off.
Okay, so wow. Well, okay, first of all, there has been a lot of positive feedback among the fans
Mm-hmm.
for this movie. And, you know, before even going into seeing it, it may have been our last stream. We were like, imagine, you know, DC was just decent. And so everyone's like, yay, they have a runner.
Mm-hmm.
This, for me, was really good.
Okay.
So I think that this film could have easily gone wrong because we have characters that resemble characters we are already very well established with in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
That could have easily felt repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an essence to that, but it's more, I don't know, they did something and I honestly can't even pinpoint that balanced it well in a way that was it just delivered it so well. And I think that this film did what Justice League couldn't, the original cut,
Mm-hmm.
in that it gave us a team that is cohesive, where the characters each kind of serve as something. The relationships between them have weight, the stakes have weight, and it connects to the greater DC universe, which they have struggled tremendously to try and create. And if this film released when it originally was supposed to release, which is, I believe, July, right, following Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Batman, I honestly think that Marvel would have been shaking because they're building something that I can easily, easily compare to the early years of the MCU. So I am excited because despite all of the inconsistencies on the back end with, DC's, scrapping projects, hiring, firing, doing, recasting, all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff they have released as of recent
Mm-hmm.
have been great. And I think for me, this definitely aligns with that. And I am beyond excited.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah. I'll get into the rest obviously as we kind of dive in it. But yeah, I think that's like my spoiler free brand.
All right. So me, I'm going to let's talk tier levels real quick. Just a reminder. Starting from the top, it goes S A B C D. I'm gonna put Black Adam in Black B for Black Adam in the B tier. Like it was a good movie for DC, but I know DC to do better, and I was kind of expecting a little more. Um, but I will still give it a satisfactory rating.
I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm just gonna disagree on the part that like we don't know DC to do better. Like they've done great. They've done like low. They've done everything in the between. So it's always a roll of dice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's but yeah, it was, I think, great. It was really really good. And I think obviously like there's always something I think they can kind of improve on or whatever. But I feel like in terms of what this film did, like there's nothing grossly sticking out in my mind that like they messed up on or could have like definitely didn't land. I feel like what they did almost was like they finally applied the formula that made the MCU so successful, but made it DC versus what they made the mistake of earlier on, which is to try to make DC Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited because we've been rooting for DC. We were so excited for 2022 for DC, and like we really want them to be successful. Marvel obviously is doing really well, but of course we've had our worries. It's like, can they replicate another saga that delivers what the original did? Like the standard is high, the highest it's ever been, and no one's ever touched it. Can they replicate it? I feel
Mm-hmm.
like DC is on their way of making something special. And so I'm excited. This means we're gonna get for sure at least another decade of amazing films. And if God willing, to the end of our days,
I would agree with you. I think this movie, in terms of if there's like a superhero movie checklist, I think it checks all the boxes. It was a good superhero movie.
It was so good. And I think that's as much as I have, without breaking spoilers. But
Okay.
what about you? Anything else you kind of want to put in before we get into the nitty gritty?
Is there anything else? Spoiler free? Anything else? No. We're gonna dive right in.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So say the reason why I'm kind of answering these questions the way that I am that about this movie is just because with DC, especially Warner Brothers, they have a formula, okay? And by that I'm saying that they have a formula to make good movies. And sometimes there may be there may be a situation to where it may get lost in the filing cabinet collecting dust, and then they come out with these B movies and C movies. But the formula is there. It's just sometimes they can't find it, right? And then they have movies like uh, especially in this universe, bringing the Snyderverse, Snyder Cut out, which pretty much it's like you don't even want to watch the original Joss Whedon now. If you were to decide you wanted to watch the Justice League, you would sit and watch a 4 hour movie versus the 2 hour. And then we get Suicide Squad 2, right? That formula was good. It was different. It was different from the original. It didn't go as dark. They added some color, and then they went full on dark and showed us that they have a winning formula by going dark with the Batman. So now bringing Black Adam into the conversation. Okay, Black Adam. Let's talk about some other heroes first because we have Superman, we have Shazam, and then we have Black Adam, and that's like the major battle royale that hopefully this ends up getting to, that everybody's seen either from the comic books or the cartoon animated movie that came out with all three of them fighting. That's something that everybody wants to see, right? But I'm expecting Black Adam to fall in the darker category, but this just seems to be more so still a lighthearted movie with The Rock trying to be dark.
I can see what you're saying. I feel like, and just kind of bringing up The Rock into this, like, I think originally, like, I didn't really expect very much on for Black Adam because, DC has been inconsistent. To your point, definitely agree. They're getting it. You know what I mean? Like I said, like the recent stuff they've been putting out, it's landing, and the fandom is eating up and loving it. And I think with this edition, I feel like this does continue that momentum. But originally, having The Rock, it's like I wondered if like maybe they're trying to cop out by just putting a big name who does bring in the audiences to try and just continue something. And so that was my worry. And I think that the way that they did it, I wasn't overwhelmed by like, oh, that's The Rock being this. Like it did feel like I was able to kind of melt into the character of Black Adam, and his demeanor stayed very consistent for the most part in terms of like being a little bit of a gloomier film. Was it as gloomier as Batman? Definitely not. Um, but I think it kept that undertone. And what I did like, because of course there was comedic relief and there was humor kind of like, sprinkled throughout, but I think that it was controlled to certain either characters or like kind of ongoing bits where it didn't oversaturate the film and overpower it. Like I feel like in this film, definitely, for example, Adam Smasher served so much for the comedic relief, and I think he did it really well. And so, but they, I think, still kept Adam as his gloomier self, and he of course adapted a lot of or adopted, I think, things from the team that he's kind of connected with, right? The sarcasm and that kind of stuff, and it's almost Draxy to me, because it was like the whole dry humor of him not understanding sarcasm, or at least trying to use sarcasm but not in like 100% the correct way.
Right.
Thinking of Drax when he was just like, that's a metaphor, or like something like that. And I think they adopted that, and I think it served well. But I think that the balance was better than some of the other films that they've done where they've tried to do humor, but it just overshadowed and it didn't really make sense and it didn't serve the film. Justice League, I think, is a great example. And then contrast that to the Snyder Cut, which should have elements of comedic relief, but it didn't overshadow. You know what I mean? I would say this is closer to that.
Yeah. It's closer. I would say definitely better than the Justice League movie in itself. I really liked honestly the kid in there, the son with his skateboard. He seemed like he was a part of the comedic element, but at the same time, I think he did a pretty good job just playing the character that he was given, just to kind of help being that motivating factor for Black Adam to actually be the hero of Kahndaq. Is that the name of the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the kid as an actor in that movie.
And to continue on that, I think one of the things that I made this really good for me is that the characters are very likable. You know, like each character is very different. They have their own little different dynamics, but every character, like in the main team, like there's such likable qualities. The young boy, the mom, the uncle, Black Adam, all of the team, you know, like Dr. Fate, they all have qualities that you really appreciate and you generally like these characters, you know, and I think it's something that Suicide Squad did very well, where you really like each of these characters, and in addition, like their relationships between each other and their interactions add a lot of weight. You know, Black Adam with the young boy whose name I can't think of, Dr. Fate, and Hawkman as well. And I think that it's just, it makes you care, you know, like if you don't care about these characters, the battles don't mean anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something that they did well. They really did take the time to showcase these characters and just give us enough time with them to care, you know, and be invested, to give us a good film, you know. And I think that's something that they have not always done well in the past, you know.
Where would you rank it on the tier system?
I think I'm between like an A and a B. You know, like a little closer to a B. It's very good. Like I think in, if I'm rating it from like Snyder cut Justice League to present day, right? Looking at Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Batman, it'd be at the bottom of those films, but
Mm-hmm.
still, I would say it surpasses a lot of the projects prior to it by a good amount. And so I
Whoa
do
there.
like the film. You know, I think it followed the superhero formula, but not too much where it was kind of like to the comments that She-Hulk was making. You know what I mean? Where it's
Mm.
repetitive in a dry way. I think it was refreshing for DC to do it like this. But I think the projects that kind of came before it have this, like you talked about it. It's a very special, different taken element. You know, Justice League being so lengthy and so gloomy in compared to the other projects for DC. Peacemaker being a very like unconventional kind of show because we're looking at a character who, by all means, should be unlikable, but we love him. And
Mm-hmm.
then Suicide Squad showcasing all these villains. You know, this is probably the closest to the quote unquote superhero formula,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so nice to see DC do it right. I think that's the thing I'm really liking about it.
Okay. Tangent here. Let's. I want you to freestyle for me, and I'm not talking rap here. I want you to freestyle. Uh, in terms of the DC universe,
Mhm.
give me tiers S to B.
Starting with, like,
Just
you want
off
me
the
to rank
top of
all
your
the
head.
films?
Yeah, just no. You don't have to rank all of them because, like, Justice League is obviously going to be D or even F tier, whatever the bottom tier is. Don't even worry about the original Justice League. Just as far as
So,
what you
okay,
think is in from S, A, and B.
to answer that question, I think everything coming after Justice League, the Snyder Cut, that and forward, I would on average say it's like a,
Okay.
which is very different to what came before that, very
Mm-hmm.
inconsistent. The dots didn't connect. You can see the attempt of trying to create a universe, but it really didn't work as best as they would like it to.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman was amazing, but everything else was just not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
From Justice League, Snyder Cut, all the way through to what we just finished watching, which is Black Adam, I feel like if this was how they started originally,
Mm-hmm.
I think they can build an empire like Marvel has in that sense. And I think it's such a good foundation for stories to continue. They've built it. They've done it. Like every single project after Justice League Snyder Cut has been connected seamlessly, very much replicating what Marvel did. And it works, you know, like it's connected and it flows well. It's not, it's just, I'm loving it. Like I'm so excited for DC because it's like you and I are superhero fans to the max. Like look at
Mm-hmm.
that, what the heck we do every Friday, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So like for us, it's just, it's great. Like I know there's a lot of conversations where people are like DC or Marvel and you got to pick one. It's like no, like we love them both and we're rooting for them to continue and making this great content for us, you know?
I think just the statement of you saying that everything post Snyder Cut has made it up in these three tiers. I think if we're going to talk about it, especially now if we're talking Black Adam, in comparison just to the other films that are in this universe, I don't think I would put it above the first Wonder Woman, And I would think honestly, it for me, I think it would either be a tie with that and the Man of Steel, because for me, I think the Man of Steel is actually one of the better films in this universe.
Yes, I feel like the Superman ones, like the standalones, have been good. You know, I think it was the moment that they were trying to catch up to what Marvel was creating. I think that's where it got shaky. You know, like they
Mm-hmm.
weren't being true to themselves.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you said. I think I like what you said, where it's like there is a DC formula, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that they got so like almost like shocked by what Marvel created, especially after Avengers and
Mm-hmm.
how amazing that was. Because back then, that was monumental.
Right.
That was biggest like tie-in we've ever seen. Like now that doesn't seem as like grand as it did 10 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
it really shook what it meant to have a franchise, you know. And I think that they, like you said, buried that formula a little bit to just try to be more Marvel, and that's where they didn't land. And now they're realizing, like, first of all, let's let these creative people and the people that the talents that we're hiring do what we're hiring them to do, you
Mm-hmm.
know, which is create these amazing projects. And let's stick to like let DC be DC, you know?
Okay. All right. That's like, and that was pretty much the reason why I'm giving it a B, because I'm not only thinking of the quality of the movie, like I said, which is good, but now I'm kind of just thinking of like those two in particular, the Man of Steel's and the Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman 1984. I'm not gonna put in the B. It's probably gonna be maybe in the C tier,
Mm-hmm.
and then anything beyond that, especially in this universe right now. Um, like, because we don't technically, we don't have a Green Lantern yet. Um, we haven't had a standalone Ben Affleck Batman, but we're not, and that's what we're gonna hopefully change in the Flash movie, just so we can get some continuation of a Batman story. Being that this is the quote unquote last maybe Ben Affleck film. It's like I know that he is making a cameo in Aquaman, but as far as Batman is concerned, I think they did a good job with this universe's Batman. Um, and then actually, like, minus the of course the craziness is going on in the real world, I was actually looking forward to the Flash, because I think that storyline would have put that maybe in the A tier, maybe even S tier, you know, because there's so much going on in that story that includes so many characters. I think if anything, that would have been, if there was a saga, this would have been, because that's the closest thing to a multiversal saga, with him kind of chasing into different timelines and trying to change the past and the future and everything like that. So that could have been DC's biggest movie in this universe, and it's a shame that it's at a status where it is right now, you know. But as far as Black Adam, I think in terms of Warner Brothers and now kind of DCEU or DC Studios, whatever the name of the studio is called now, with James Gunn at the top. He's not, I don't think he's not gonna give us, he's not gonna guardian us, you know. Being that he kind of proved himself with the Peacemaker, just to give us something different. It's he gave us uh, a mature version of comedy, you know. Turned out to be good, and I can imagine that the rest of the universe, if it's under his approval, he'll keep it to where it's at the level of a Peacemaker or Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, like I think with this film coming out and with those recent announcements that now this is not just like this isn't like Warner Bros. This is the DC like DC Studios is
Mm-hmm.
now is the announcement, and the head of it, the Kevin Feige, if you will, is James Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
I think the future for DC is going to be incredible. Marvel better bring it in this next phase because DC is on their freaking asses. And let me tell you, as a fan, I'm like, fight to the death. Because this just means we're going to get amazing content, and we're going to see content that honors these heroes that we love just so much, in this genre that we're just so passionate about. So like, I have been so happy this week. DC's been giving us some great news. Marvel's been giving us all these trailers. Like, I feel like the future is super.
I think what we've kind of talked about, just being like movies, like superhero movies, is being as good as who the villain is. If they can make Darkseid do to DC what Thanos did to Marvel, then it'd be solid.
And I mean, Darkseid is looming, right? If you still, it's very weird. Like, and we've talked about DC. It's like I feel like it's a headache to try to make things connect, and we might as well just not make it connect. Like, let them tell us: is this connected? Is this not? Is this? You know what I mean? Like, it's always been a headache, especially for you. I know because you're the master of continuity. You know,
Master.
and at this point, it's like with all these things connected, like I really do want an answer now. I feel like I've always been on the other spectrum of like, dude, don't even bother with DC. Just enjoy what you get, and let's not try to make these things puzzle piece together. But now that this is like these past like 5 projects have puzzle pieced together so beautifully and so effortlessly with like Amanda Waller and that one blonde girl that's just recently married to James Gunn,
Right.
and some other things that connect all these projects together in the same umbrella in the same universe. Like I want to know, what projects before that they would like to kind of consider still canon under that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if Justice League Snyder Cut is considered under that umbrella, then he is in the background, like Darkseid. He may not be present in these projects we've seen since then, but I mean that is exactly what Marvel did. You know, like it's not like every film had Thanos in the end credits, but we know that was part of it. And so if they can keep doing what they're doing, like maybe we're gonna see something happen where Darkseid does become the Thanos of this seemingly up and coming saga, you know? And so I'm excited. The future for DC is bright.
Well, just to we're like all right. We were on a tangent before, but we're going on another tangent here, and we'll get back to Black Adam soon. But let's talk. I guess my topic would be continuity. I guess. So say I'm gonna bring up one of the pictures that you sent from the Peacemaker. It's just the Peacemaker looking onto the Justice League, kind of coming a little late when they actually defeated the Butterflies, Project Butterfly, and they just showed up. So right then and there, being that though we didn't see Henry Cavill's face, there is the Superman, and then everybody else is pretty recognizable from the Justice League that we got in the Snyder Cut, or just the Justice League in general. So I think it's safe to assume that there is no multiverse here in the DC studios as of yet. As of right now, everything is pretty much one universe. I'm going to assume. So everything from the Justice League, Black Adam in this Justice Society, Suicide Squad, everything that we've seen is somehow all connected. It's just now, how does DC move forward just to make a good story out of it?
Yeah, I think that's a valid question for sure. And I do want them to outline it for us a little bit because just looking at, for example, Suicide Squad, there was debate within the House of DC of is this a sequel, is this a reboot? And so I feel like where before I really didn't feel like they needed to explain it to us or connect the dots, I really do feel like they do now. I'm finally on board with you. Like I think I would just like the full stamp and clarity because I think it matters, you know, because we need it as nerds to just create accurate predictions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like we need this. And so, but I'm excited. Even if they don't connect the dots, we can connect the dots for what's certain, you know, like, and that's why I sent that picture in because just with this alone connects Justice League, Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and now Black Adam into one of Shazam under one umbrella for sure. And all of those stories are blended somehow, which is what Marvel did saga like first phase, you know? And so I really hope, and that same question that you said, kind of said, it's like, okay, where is it leading? Like, is it going to lead into something similar? So I think we're asking like the right questions in regards to DC for sure. And it's exciting that we get to ask these questions now.
One thing that now I'm just kind of, I don't know if I if I like it or not, but just kind of the common denominator in all these films right now is Amanda Waller, right? And say she's in connection to, of course, both Suicide Squads, um, the Justice Society, and initially with this movie, I'm thinking, or not even with this movie, with the universe, I'm thinking that it's separate. Not separate, but the Justice League in itself as a league is separate from Amanda Waller. But the way that this movie ended, it just seemed like Superman is under Amanda Waller's thumb. You know, it's like, okay, destroy the drone, Superman handle it. You know what I'm saying? It just seems now is the Justice League like in connection to Amanda Waller.
I can see that. And also it's like I understand what you're saying because obviously like at the end of this well, we're looking at the post credit scene which was epic, very very Marvel of them and it landed unlike Sony and their attempt with Morbius,
We don't
but
have to
that's
talk
neither
Sony
here nor there.
ever.
Yeah, I was like that's neither here nor there. But you know obviously like Amanda Waller is not one to lose, you know, just kind of, you know, fade away in the background. So she very much confronts Black Adam immediately, like, okay, like you were able to kind of best me in this, but this is now your prison. You can stay here in Kahndaq, but at the moment you step off, like you're done. And you know, he being the badass that he is, like poses like a very, I think, appropriate a question of like, or just saying like, there's nobody you have that could possibly go up against me. And I thought it was so cool how Superman literally just immediately came in, but it does give that effect of like he's under her or has
Right.
her back.
Under her
Like,
supervision or
what is
something
the
like that.
yeah? Like, what is it? Is it directly like the way Suicide Squad is and the Justice Society, or which would kind of almost feel like a Sokovia Accords, right? Where there's like a council, in this case, Amanda Waller, that dictates who and where and what the superheroes intervene in. So I wonder if the Justice League is also under that. Or maybe it could just be like Amanda Waller is part of the government. Um, Superman may not really be aware of honestly how messed up Amanda Waller is. So if someone says like, hey, there's a threat, which makes sense, like there's been a lot of activity in Kahndaq, like Superman's gonna go check it out. No questions really. It seems pretty simple maybe. So it's TBD, but I definitely did get the same sensation when I saw Superman.
I think with in just to kind of rewind here, I think the last episode of Peacemaker, I think Peacemaker told Waller's daughter to get in contact with her to send the Justice League. Now that I think about it, like that was the reason why they showed up at the end,
Oh
because
yes,
the
yes,
Peacemaker
yes,
was
yes, yes.
like, make a call, get Waller to get the Justice League. So now, if that's the case, I'm just wondering why is Waller, why does she have so much power to have so many teams? Because she has, let's say, a team which is more covert, that she doesn't mind just killing off with ex-convicts, and then she has the Justice Society, to where that team was just made up. So she just freestyled a team just now in this movie. And then Justice League, that was already kind of a team that kind of came together. And we saw that in the movie on how they came together. Now she's just kind of just the governing body of that. So it's a little worrisome for me as far as why Amanda Waller has so much power and able to create so many teams.
I almost want to quote, and I don't have it like verbatim, but like what she says in the original Suicide Squad of like, I'm very good at getting people to do what I want for the good of like the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I wonder, and like the thing is like the Justice League just seemed like too great of an entity, kind of like the Avengers, to kind of just follow under like the whim of Amanda
Right.
Waller.
Right.
So I wonder if it's more like she's got their number, but it's not like they're as immediately like under her rank. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it's the same way as how like the Justice Society immediately takes the orders in that specific way as like the Justice League. And obviously the Suicide Squad is like Amanda Waller can do whatever she wants. Like she literally has the upper hand regardless. There's like a bomb in your neck,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's like I think degrees, but she has them in their pocket to some extent. Like she has the power to make that call. and they'll answer. So that is scary because by all means, she's been a constant villain, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting. And it is a scary thing, like you said, for her to be the one making all the moves.
Well, then if we're gonna now just kind of say with her in the background of kind of having her hands in a little bit of everything now I'm judging her judgment. If she has the an idea of what these ancient texts say about Black Adam, what happened in Conduct and all those years ago, why not send Superman? Why send Hawk? Is Hawkman? Is that his name?
Hmm.
Hawkman. Doctor Fate is understandable. Like in terms of Hawkman, that is a real question mark as to how he was able to stand up against Black Adam the way he did. Like he if anything, do you know what his powers are, if any?
I have it right here. So okay, so just a brief, let's see. Uh, I can look it up super quickly on the database.
Because I'm just like, if you have Superman on speed dial, why don't you just send him and the rest of the Justice League to handle this in Conduct? You know?
See, I feel like I feel like it would just be like she can't be calling Superman for everything. And keep in mind, on the team she has Doctor Fate too. Like he's a pretty powerful being,
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the question you're asking for, like her judgment, but ultimately she does call for Superman because I think she recognizes that this is beyond what she imagined. You know what I mean? And the initial team wasn't able to get the job done like the way she wanted.
Right.
So it's interesting, but I am curious to kind of what you asked about with like Hawkman, because yeah, like when he's going up against Black Adam, like all I see is him in armor. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem like there's an enhanced quality
Mm-hmm.
to think that maybe he has higher durability to kind of take on the impact, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But I do have it pulled up here. So no DC superhero has lived as many lives as Hawkman, yet through each of them he has sought justice for humanity and happiness beyond and his beloved Hawkgirl. Since the days of World War II, there was always been an imposing figure with majestic wings and a striking bird-shaped helmet, brandishing ancient weaponry and standing alongside Earth's greatest heroes in
Mm-hmm.
his time of need. A fierce warrior without equal, the hero known as Hawkman has been a human being trapped in an ancient Egyptian curse of endless death and rebirth, and at other times, an alien police officer sent to Earth to help defend it. Okay, so it does seem like there is like a super powered element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So there's another level to it. It's not just him in a suit. So I guess that makes sense.
I'm
And maybe
thinking
we'll.
just seeing him, I'm like, okay, that's dope. So if anything, cross universes, Falcon can handle Black Adam like it's nothing.
Yeah, yeah, I understood because that is the parallel, right? So, but it's Falcon isn't enhanced, and I don't think I've read the literature that says
He's
otherwise.
not.
Yeah, so I guess Hawkman is to some extent. And so I think it makes more sense. And at the end, right, Black Adam does kind of get the upper hand on Hawkman, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Uh so there is like a little bit, I think you still see, I think, that power dynamic. I think a big thing of like Hawkman is that he is formidable and just like his demeanor also, like he's not one to give up, and he's very forceful in that. So I think um that plus the fact that he does have an enhanced element that hasn't been specifically stated here, but maybe we will learn about more of how it is blended into the DC universe
Mm-hmm.
down the road. But I think it adds up. I think it adds a little bit more to the realisticness of his ability to kind of go up against Black Adam.
Okay. Um, I'll go into some likes that I of the movie that I picked out. Say when it comes down to um, what was it? Oh, let's start with Doctor Fate. Like I like the idea of them bringing Doctor Fate in, and like they kind of stated clear in terms of his helmet and like the helmet's power, and the helmet kind of chooses who is the bearer of the helmet. So right then and there, it reminds me of like the Green Lantern ring. So even though the actor Pierce Brosnan is now no longer Doctor Fate, we're probably gonna get another younger version of Doctor Fate down the line. So I did kind of like that explanation.
I like that, right? Because they explained essentially enough about like his helmet to understand
Mm-hmm.
that once he does inevitably, die at the end of the film, it's not the end of Doctor Fate
Mm-hmm.
for the DC. So I do like how they did that. Um, and I'll let you continue because I definitely have a couple likes I'd like to add in there too.
Um, then when it comes down to uh oh the actual how he received his powers. I like that they brought in the same wizard because I've always known Black Adam to be in the Shazam family, not in the actual family, but in terms of the power family, you know. So say when it comes down to it, I'm glad they brought the same wizard that we got in Shazam, and then coincidentally, as a trailer before this movie, we get the Shazam 2 trailer, and this wizard is in it. So when we go to the movie, and honestly, say my girl, she asked, she was just like, so what is this movie about? And I was like, okay, so we just saw this trailer, Shazam, right? And she was just like, wait, is it the same thing? I'm like, yeah, it's like a darker version, a darker version basically. But I do like that they brought that wizard in just to kind of again give us that continuity, just so we know that if anything, there could be some explanation down the line from the wizard to Shazam as far as who Black Adam is and how they're going to clash down the line.
Yeah, and Black Adam was actually supposed to appear in the 2019 Shazam film,
Mm-hmm.
and so agreed. I think this is again one of those things that they did well in being able to connect the films without it being overshadowing or it just doesn't make sense or flow with it, right? It makes
Mm-hmm.
total sense, and I think just having the appearance of that same wizard did everything it needed to do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, definitely agree.
But with that being said, and us watching the trailer, did the Shazam trailer come on before you? Before the movie
Uh,
for you?
yes, it did.
Okay, so say with that being said, all right. So uh, in the Shazam trailer, we're kind of getting the premise it's against it's Shazam family versus the actual gods or something like that with Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, right? So now, my question is, being that this wizard looks like he is in possible trouble here, um, how is he focused on this when he has Black Adam in conduct? You know, I feel like Black Adam is a loose end that it's almost kind of his responsibility to take care of.
And maybe I mean I don't know they like the extent of how like the wizard works, but I definitely understand that. I mean, like I think in their eyes they maybe did. In the comics, it follows a similar theme that, well, in the comics, Black Adam is gifted these powers to fight off the oppressors of conduct.
Mm-hmm.
But after taking power and losing his, family, he becomes a very like ruthless ruler
Mm-hmm.
and because basically is the cause of the destruction of his people, and he becomes unworthy, and the wizards do come together to kind of lock him up. So you can see how a lot of this was blended into the film with minor changes. And so maybe like in their minds, like they thought that they did. And also, we don't really know timeline wise where these films kind of line up. And maybe once we do get Shazam, it'll answer the questions. Like maybe, like I feel like it would make so much sense, or I almost expect it for there to be like a post credit scene to immediately connect it to, where maybe this makes sense, like the timeline and the explanation of like their involvement, because it's kind of like the maybe not to the severity, but I think a good example would be kind of like the head sticking out of the ocean in Marvel. It's like no one's gonna address this, like no one recognizes this, no one's talking about it. Like I feel like they especially with the fact that they are weaving this together pretty well at this point, um maybe that will explain, like once we see Shazam, like we'll kind of see the connections, because ultimately it's like you said, we're anticipating a showdown between Shazam, Black Adam, and Superman down the road. So
Mm-hmm.
I do expect these things to connect, especially being that Black Adam was supposed to go into the original. So I think we'll get an answer or some satisfaction to that soon.
All right, so now I'm gonna talk to. Uh, I've had a stable line to talk to the Marvel exec Kevin Feige. You know, we because we know exactly who it is, and he's the one to explain everything. But now that we have a solid idea of who's going to be running DC from here on out, Gun, my man, Gun.
I
We
love
need
that.
we need we need an explanation on timeline. We need to know we need to know a lot. So, Gun, if you're listening, let's get this out to the people, please. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Dude, I love how this week's announcement has now set up a whole new level of bits for us because this is like an ongoing thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I love this so much. That is awesome.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Anything else on your end that you kind of want to highlight before? Well, I'll share kind of mine, and then we can dive into maybe shortfalls or questions, or maybe things we didn't kind of add up for the film.
Um. If there was anything else that I liked, I actually I enjoyed his whole intro of the it's like a slow motion montage of him taking out an entire army. I actually really did enjoy that.
Oh yeah, I think that the action is so good. And I feel like I don't want to say stolen, but they've adopted elements that I think we've enjoyed very much in like Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way that's very, very much their own. You know, it doesn't, it resembles, but it's not repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this sequence where because obviously he has the power of, I forget the god who has like speed, but he has, speed. It begs the question if it's as fast as Flash, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we get this sequence that's slowed down, and it reminds me very much of the Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men films from Marvel or
Mm-hmm.
Sony, yeah, Fox. And
All of
it's
them.
all of them, but it's great. Like it looks really good. Um, the fight scenes were really well like orchestrated, and I really liked them. Like I really also think I feel like the first fight that we get with Black Adam once he's released, I think that they did a good choice of choosing for him to be kind of covered. Like you don't see his face
Mm-hmm.
until kind of after that battle sequence. And I don't know if that is an important piece that allowed me to see him as Black Adam and not The Rock. But I did like that choice.
I think the way you just said it just now, I think that's pretty spot on because if he just emerged as bald head trap heavy rock that we got for a majority of the movie, then it's like, oh, it's Dwayne. But like him seeing this hooded kind of cowl or cape or whatnot, it's like okay, now it's not really necessarily a rock. This is a dark entity that's been released, and this is something that the army should be scared of. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so um before I kind of give my piece, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of highlight about the film, like some good, strong points
I'm
for
done with my highlights. There's only like
You're like,
three or
that's it.
four. That's it.
Okay. I feel like I did talk a lot about what I do enjoy from the film, so I won't repeat like a lot of those elements. But one of the things I do want to highlight is, like I said earlier, I think that this film could have very easily not landed because there's so many things that remind you of things Marvel has done
Mm-hmm.
that could have easily felt like they're stealing or they're just, but they made it their own. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why it worked. And I think the easiest example of that is the fact that we're dealing with characters that you can so easily correlate to characters from Marvel, which are already well established, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of go down the line, like we have, of course, Atom Smasher, which is like Ant Man, and this is the funny thing is like it's almost like DC has the unfortunate job of having to introduce characters that are almost like
Counterparts.
stupidly exactly like
Right.
Marvel's.
Mm-hmm.
And the funnier thing of that is that it's like DC did it first. for most of these characters,
Mm-hmm.
DC made the original that Marvel then ended up kind of copying and making their own. And now it's like DC has to prove themselves. So I think it's so funny. I think the only one from this lineup is Ant-Man and Atom Smasher. Ant-Man came like maybe 20 years before Atom Smasher, but everything else, like they have a good like 20 years ahead of Marvel and
Mm-hmm.
introducing these characters, you know? And so that's like the funny thing of it. So we have Ant-Man, Atom Smasher, Doctor Fate, easily recognizable as Doctor Strange. And there's so many elements in this film that also add that, like just the way that
Mm-hmm.
there's things that you can pinpoint to, like, wow, that looks like the mirror dimension, and that looks like what he does in Infinity War, and this is almost the same concept as Endgame of like, you know, 1 in 10 whatever thousand, tell me this is the one, you know, like things like that
Mm-hmm.
that could easily just be like, dude, what is this, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
this is just like a bootleg of Marvel, you know, but it doesn't end up reading that way. It's just, it feels similar and there's reminiscence of it, but it doesn't feel cliche, you know, like it works. So we have Hawkman and Falcon, Amanda Waller, Nick Fury, and it's just it's something that I think is something we can kind of commend because, like I said, so easily could have not landed, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, I agree. Just because, say, when it comes down to uh, not Adam Smasher, actually Doctor Fate. I actually I've known of Doctor Fate before I even really knew Doctor Strange. Just because Strange I was only familiar with from actually watching the first movie. I didn't really know too much about him from any other aspect. But say Doctor Fate, I was like I've kind of known him to be more so on the magical side and everything like that. And it's like I played with him a bit in the Injustice video game. But now, kind of fast forwarding here, we get him and in this movie, and now being that Doctor Strange, we've seen him maybe like 3 or 4 times illustrating his magic, and now we get Doctor Fate trying to illustrate, or not even trying to illustrate, doing what he does, and now it's kind of easy to compare. But I think DC did a good job at not making them exact. You know, it was just a moment of it's like him getting his visions or whatnot. It's like something that he sees in his dreams or whatnot. Like whenever he touches the helmet. So it wasn't necessarily exactly like Doctor Strange. You can kind of get a feel for it and how they can be comparable, but um, it was different, and DC kind of made it a point to for it to be different.
Absolutely. And honestly, in terms of like the characteristics of these characters, I like Doctor Fate so much more than Doctor Strange. Like he's just so much more likable. Like he's warm, you know? I feel like
Responsible.
Doctor Strange, ah, like he puts his life on the line. Like I feel like Doctor Strange, there's so many instances where he's just calculated to almost like a cold degree. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been mentioned in, you know, Endgame, Infinity War, you know, Multiverse of Madness. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
a very strong characteristic of him. Like your life means, like, you know, your death means infinitely more than your life. Things like that. You know, like it's he Doctor Fate is more likable in that he's very warm, and I
Sure.
think it's funny because he foils very much Hawkman. Right, like they're so opposites in many scenarios. Like Hawkman is very much like just very serious. You know, he does soften up throughout the film, especially towards Black Adam, but you know, he contrasts a lot of Doctor Fate, who's very like just warm. I think that's the word that keeps coming in mind. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like we're saying, like similar, but they made it their own. You know, like you can feel the parallels, but it doesn't feel like a copy and paste, even though it kind of is if you look at the comics. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They make them their own, and I think they did it well, and it's so easy for them to not have done it well.
So does this fall? Because we ended up talking about what we liked about it, but I thought this was falling under the dislike
No,
conversation.
I'm these are my solid points of
Oh,
like the
got you,
you
got you,
know
got you for sure.
yeah, these are my solid
Okay,
points, so
go
that I
for it.
think
Keep
is
going.
like
Keep
one
going.
of the big ones. Yeah. That's definitely one of the big ones. Just some comments I do have, like that aren't necessarily critiques or particularly highlights, for example, I'm just calling them highlights, that I do like is so Adam Smasher, right? He's definitely the comedic relief of this project. And I think, like I mentioned, it's very well balanced, and I think because the comedy is very controlled into
Mm-hmm.
finite little moments, it does blend well with the film. And I was gonna write, like Adam Smasher is like so incompetent, especially compared to the other kind of youngin on the team. He keeps messing up, and like Falcon, like I'm sorry, Falcon. You see, a Hawkman
Mm-hmm.
is like you and me, like in so many instances because he keeps messing up. And I think it's funny, because he has a very similar thing that they did in Marvel, right? They have that generation, right? He adopted the same powers as his uncle. He seems to have this innately. It's not powered by the suit, I believe, but the
Mm-hmm.
suit is kind of like Edna mode, like created to form to his power, which is to grow, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And he quite literally has to fill some pretty big shoes. And so I do like that they made him so, I don't know, just like flawed in a sense, but very charming, you know. And to kind of talk about the other team on like the team is Cyclone, right?
Yeah.
So I forget the way that she words like her specific power. It has to do with like aerodynamics or something of the sort. And you know, she explains that she has like nanobots in her bloodstream that allow her to do this power that were basically, you know, forced on her by this crazy scientist. And I love how so briefly they were able to kind of give a whole backstory of her in such a quick like shot, you know, like just for us to know enough about her. Because this is definitely a character I'm not too familiar with.
Right.
But visually, like her power looks amazing. Amazing. Like it's so beautiful to watch. However, it feels almost anticlimactic because she's doing all these elaborate waves and it looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, I moved a truck. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, have you seen Avatar The Last Airbender, like the movie?
Yeah, I think I only saw it once, honestly. And
It's
then
not good.
yeah,
So I
I
don't
know.
blame you. Yeah. But it
That was
reminds
because
me
that
of
was
like
I'm
a
sorry, that was
scene.
M Night Shyamalan, and back then he still wasn't. He was a little off. So sorry. Continue.
No, yeah, it's like it's not great. Like I love the series, and they're doing a series on Netflix, and I'm excited because I think it's gonna be good, and I'm looking forward to it. But the film wasn't great, and I remember there's like a scene where these earthbenders are moving a rock, and it's like four of them doing these elaborate moves for one rock to just glide across like this. And I feel like it just reminded me of her powers because there's so much behind it, and it's just like, and I moved this. You know, it was just funny to me. You know, like I'm sure we'll see more of her powers and like all the things that it does, but it seemed a little anticlimactic to me. Not enough that I'd call it like a grievance, but just something I thought was interesting.
Do you know her backstory? Because she kind of gave a little piece in terms of, I guess there was a villain that inserted these nanobots to give her her powers and maybe even her smarts. Do you know if we know who that person was who did that?
No, I can easily figure it out. I will say I think like her ingenuity is something that she has innately, like because that's kind of how she was working with this, I think,
Mm,
scientist. Like
mm,
she's a super genius. And maybe it was enhanced, who knows?
mm-hmm.
Um, but I pulled it up really quickly originally. Um I'm just gonna read this. I don't know if this is
Go for it.
accurate, but it's for DC. So though Cyclone is the granddaughter of the original Red Tornado, she didn't inherit superpowers as her grandmother never had any. Instead, Cyclone was given her powers by force when she was kidnapped at age of 6. So it does add up, but I'm not sure who kidnapped her. But I'm pretty sure it's gonna come up. Let's see. Maybe I should just type in who kidnapped Cyclone.
If we can get like honestly like a Lex Luthor connection there, that would be super awesome. If we're just talking like villains here, super smart villains, you
I
know?
found it. I like that. I like that theory. I feel like that would have been cool, but unfortunately, it's not. Okay, so I just missed. I clicked it, and I think okay. As a young girl, Maxine, referring to Cyclone, was once kidnapped by T.O. Morrow, the mad scientist who created the second Red Tornado, a powerful android. He injected her with Red Tornado technology nanobites, though their effects did not manifest until years later.
Okay. Okay, that answers that question.
There you go. It
Thank
was
you,
good.
thank you, appreciate it.
Thy welcome.
Mm-hmm. uh, did you have any other highlights?
I think, like I said, I feel like we went over a lot of them throughout the course of our the show today. I love. I'm just gonna add this. Like, I know we talked about it, but I just love the dry humor for like Black Adam. Like, tell them the Man in Black sent you, and his like attempt to try to get it right, but he's
Mm-hmm.
not getting the timing. Like, he'll remember last minute, and then finally he gets it right in like that final battle sequence. And also, I feel like there's so much parallel with like him and Drax in regards to that sarcasm. And that's kind of it. Like I said, the film for me did really well. The characters were really well developed. The pacing was great. The relationships between each of them felt really genuine, and I think the film did well.
Okay.
I think it followed the superhero formula, and I think they applied it really well, and it landed.
Okay. Okay. I do have a couple of things I do want to mention that it's really what brings down the movie down the ratings for me. So, did you have any other positive before we go into the negative? Is that everything?
Yeah, for the majority. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. All
Let's
right.
hear it.
So, first off, the reason why I say this movie it's a good superhero movie for DC. I think for me the first thing that kind of caught me, I wouldn't say caught my eye, but really just listening in on this movie, this movie it forced the superhero score, like the music in the background for me. I think there were moments to where it just came off either too loud or something like that, to the point to where now we're having an extra superhero moment, to where I think especially today, and I don't want to continue to compare DC to Marvel, but I mean that's just what it is. Like we're entering a time to where now with Marvel they've kind of almost like evolved from just the traditional superhero score, to where now, like say Guardians for example, now they're actually using some retro uh some retro music just to give us that the retro vibes of the colors and everything that we're getting. I was expecting the music just to be a little bit darker, but it was kind of just bright, and it was on some like here goes Superman, but it's not, it's Black Adam. So the music kind of brought it down for me.
I love that detail that you're pulling on because cinematography, like really the storytelling beyond just the dialogue, the score is a big element of it, the soundtrack, all of that, because it will change the delivery of a scene completely.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that detail, and I feel like you're like such an expert in that regard. And so no commentary there. Like I think it's probably an element of the film that maybe I didn't think too much of. So I can understand what you're saying though, for sure.
Right, like in hearing it, I'm hearing like dun dun dun. I'm just like, this isn't that. This is supposed to be a quote unquote darker hero than what we get in these Justice Leagues and Justice Societies. Why is Black Adam getting the actual kind of hero feel? And throughout the whole movie, he's just like, I'm no hero, but he gets
The
the
superhero
hero the
center,
hero
yeah.
score.
I understand that. And something now, kind of thinking about it, I'm wondering, like, because we said I do feel like it was well balanced. And I think we talked about in the beginning that maybe it could have leaned a little bit closer to the gloomy, especially because we're looking at a character like Black Adam. And I feel like even like that one character, like the young boy, almost like says it verbatim, like lean into the black, like lean into that broodiness, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So maybe this film actually should have done that and lean into maybe a little bit more, and maybe the score alone would have been enough,
Yeah.
like to change the score from something like you said that's very traditionally like Superman esque, and into something broody or slower tempoed or something to that effect. I feel like would have added an element of darkness to his character that I
Yep.
think would make sense. So yes, I definitely see what you're saying for sure.
Well, yeah, and we've talked just in terms, you may have just said it just now, in terms of uh, it's really the music that kind of moves the emotion here. So I'm thinking this character to be a little scarier than most. So why not give us a little bit of just the scarier feel for when he's either raining terror on the army, then the initial battle scene, or even when it comes down to I think just just the battles throughout. It was a little too bright, and we just needed a little darkness to it. Because as of right now, we can repeat it in saying that DC lives in the darkness, especially with the success of Batman. You know, so that I would say, if anything, if we were talking formulas for this movie, this could have been part of that formula.
Just like a dash more.
Yeah.
Like I think it would have
Mm-hmm.
given enough to just push it a little further down that spectrum to just distinctly keep it a little closer to Batman versus Superman,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. And so I think the score would have been a really great place to do that because I feel like I said, it changes the whole dynamic of the scene.
Yeah.
So definitely.
And I think right now on my mind, the only other comment that I do have that I feel like we or they could have done a better job at doing in terms of the studio. I know we're in a time to where we're crunching number or not even crunching numbers, just in terms of just like VFX just kind of being the main thing, and we're hearing all these stories of just all these artists having issues with deadlines, and that it's like this movie could have been pushed back. Uh, Probably maybe VFX could have been an issue. We don't know, but say when it comes down to the VFX in this movie, uh, the main villain that we get at the end, I think, being that it's 2022 going into 2023 now, if he's gonna look like what they wanted him to look like, I'm expecting to see something as, even though this is fiction, but something looking as realistic as Thanos. You know, I think that character in itself, when he came back from either if it's hell or a hellish dimension or whatnot, and he came back to be the champion of those demons, I think for me they could have just put a little bit more contrast or maybe like another filter, something just to give us the CG elements that we're kind of used to today.
Sure, and I did actually think of that when I think it's when he's walking up the steps towards the throne,
Mm-hmm.
and you get close up of his face, and first of all, he looks like Hellboy, you know, a little
Right.
bit. But I do think the design was just fine. But I think that is the element that maybe pulled me away a little bit. It's just that we have an expectation of the special effects at this point, and at this point, I think when it doesn't land, I feel like it's a very intentional choice to just not invest in it, and I think that's cheap. So, yes, I do see what you're saying for sure.
It's almost like they put in all the money for the VFX just to make the rock smaller. You know what I'm saying?
It's yes, oh my god, yes, and it's always like to the commentary that She-Hulk like kind of shows cases. So it's like, okay, like we need you to go back to She-Hulk form because you're expensive, but make sure you transition in the like when we cut, so we don't have to also work on
Right.
doing transition. Like it's just like that. Like it's very much a budget thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and also like a manpower, like numbers, you know, and so like I said, I think when that is lacking, it's an intentional choice to just not invest in it, you know, and so it falls short. And I think it's a really really good area to criticize because we have the means to make this look amazing, you know. So yeah, I would definitely say I align with that critique.
Sure. Like I think honestly, for me, the biggest thing, especially in the movie industry, I don't want to talk just Marvel here, but let's talk movies just in general. If we can have a movie that came out maybe 10, 15 plus years ago, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Have you seen it?
Yes.
So if we can make Brad Pitt go from super old to very
Super.
young and look great young, like Brad Pitt but like a kid, you know what I'm saying? Then we should have the ability to pretty much do anything that we want visually on screen. So just to kind of fall short on something like that, like I now seeing that, I can understand the hoopla on the initial trailer of She-Hulk, because initially I didn't get it, and then everybody was kind of upset with her initial look in the trailer, and I was like, she looks fine to me. But now, kind of looking at this villain, I don't, and that's the thing. I don't even know this villain's name. But looking at him, I'm just like, I feel like we could have did a little better. We could have just maybe put some more time on the computer. I'm sorry, VFX guys, but maybe like another day or two just to kind of clean it up. That would have been very much appreciated.
That's what She-Hulk did.
Mm,
Literally delayed its release a day. You know that's because of things like special effects. You don't
mm-hmm.
delay something just a day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, I completely agree. And just something because we were talking about the villain. I like the idea because we kind of see it also in Shazam that these greater entities will pick a champion to kind of do their bidding in a sense and give them all these powers. That's what we see with this particular character. Like exactly right, like these demons give him these powers the same way that the wizards gave Shazam and Black Adam their powers. And so it's just an interesting concept to kind of think about that these greater beings can do that. And we've seen Darkseid do this as well, you know, in the animated Harley Quinn like series on HBO Plus. He actually
HBO Plus.
HBO Plus. Oh God, HBO Max. Man, I'm a mess. I called Hawkman Falcon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just been everywhere.
It's all good.
Anywho, um, Darkseid does give like Harley powers. And let me tell you, actually her suit looks pretty badass. I was kind of sad when she gave them up, but he does something very similar with her, you know, in the show. And so it's interesting because I think it's something that DC does that I haven't seen Marvel do in that way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have champions like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool, and I'm curious if we're gonna see that kind of come up again.
Yeah, I can imagine. But as of right now, I think we're approaching. What's the? There's like a game out, and I don't know if it's DC or Marvel, but I think it's called Contest of Champions. And as of right now, I think DC's in the phase to where the champions have been announced. Like, the only champion that hasn't been announced, honestly, is let's say Dr. Fate, his helmet, has to choose a new champion, quote unquote, and then the Lantern has to choose the Earth or that sector's champion, quote unquote, you know. But we have quote unquote two champions under the Shazam family. One was an accident, where the other was intentional. Um, and then Superman is just championed by beating Zod. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I think in terms of this, if we're talking Kryptonians, he just became champion. So I think we're just waiting on those two other factors, and then it just becomes a contest of champions versus Darkseid, which I hope for down the line.
Yeah, I like that. So one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up was, and I'm trying to look it up because I don't remember. Oh, here it goes. Eternium, right? So this is the like I don't know if it would be called metal. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it came from outer space, I think originally, or something like that.
Oh,
But
they
it
didn't say
basically,
that in the movie. Did they? Is that like a comic book reference?
I think it's yeah, I think it is. I
Okay.
think it is. But basically it's something that you would mine in Kondak, very similar to how you would mine vibranium in
Mm-hmm.
Wakanda,
Mm-hmm.
very similar to that. And that's why these people who have like come to like pretty much oppress the people of Kondak have done, like they're mining its resources, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And they use this metal or whatever, eternium,
Mm-hmm.
almost like how
Wakanda.
what's no. Well, yes, I think it's very. You can kind of compare that a little bit, but also it's kind of like kryptonite
Mm-hmm.
to Black Adam, right? Because that's the only thing we see like really debilitate him,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought that we were going to see the villain use that as a weapon against Black Adam, but we didn't. But it's very much used the same way that kryptonite is used for Superman. So
Right.
each of them have a weakness that's actually very similar. And it's just interesting to me. I think that was a really cool parallel that you can draw.
Why? Okay. So now it's like you bringing that up. It just reminded me in terms of everything that we see. You said Ethereum, right? Is that what it's
Uh,
called?
I'm just gonna look it up again just to make sure. Eternium. Eternium.
Okay, Eternium. So when it comes down to Eternium, one thing that I'm now just a little confused of, being that we've already kind of concluded that everything is pretty much in the same universe right now in terms of DC. So I think say it again. Give me the name. I'm sorry. Eternium.
Eternium.
Eternium. Sorry. Because Ethereum, I think that's like a Bitcoin. So that's why I'm getting kind of confused.
Confused.
So.
It's okay. There's a lot of confusion on today's show. It's totally fine.
Eternium, just a material like that, as valuable as like that, and then almost kind of be comparable to, let's say, like a vibranium mixed with kryptonite or whatnot. Why is it only exclusive to Kondak? Why is it exclusive to the mercenaries that try to dig it up? You know, why hasn't any type of government tried to do anything? Because I can imagine, if anything, like something as valuable as that could be a possible weapon to defeat Superman. That they, even though we probably know for sure that it doesn't, it's just something that no one has tried. You know, it's just some now a raw material that just happened to come up in this movie, and I don't know. It's just it's weird that we only get it referenced here, and we don't know if its properties do anything else to any other heroes, or
Yeah,
actually what it does.
yeah, and I feel like we'll probably see this again because I feel like this set the precedent that this affects Black Adam the same way that that vibranium, Lord help me, that
Kryptonite.
kryptonite affects Superman, and so I feel like that sets the precedent for future fight scenes, you know, and kind of what could potentially take down Black Adam. But again, like referring to Eternium, I feel like Eternium is very similar to Vibranium in that it has like these enhanced qualities that can be used as weapons,
Right.
power,
And that's what I'm bringing it
etc.
up. Yeah. Like, so
Yeah,
say let's rewind. Right. Let's say Superman finally becomes Superman in Man of Steel, and then I'm sure he's saved many countries and many times before we even get to Justice League. He's just Superman. He saves everything. But I feel like it would be interesting to see something or hear something of Superman having to chase one of these gliding motorcycles that's powered by Eternium, to where it's kind of hard to catch, because now it just seems like how we saw Black Adam catch it. It's just something to where it's a material that could be used to either uh, fight a metahuman, or just to get away if need be.
yeah, and it's just interesting like why it affects Black Adam. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it like you said? Is it just to him? Does it affect all supers? And also, it's funny how for the majority of people this is something of power, but for him, it's a kryptonite. You know, kryptonite isn't necessarily used like that from what I can recall,
Mm-hmm.
apart from it just being used as a weapon against Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting, like that dynamic, you know, especially because he's super. Like you would think that it actually the power of it doesn't negatively affect him, but it's interesting. So it's definitely something that we still don't fully understand how it interacts with the greater DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, like the vision I have is that Superman has Eternium like a spear of it, and then we have Black Adam with the same thing but of kryptonite, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just fighting back and forth like stabbing each other and such in this way. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how you can compare it both to say vibranium and also in that same sentence compare it to kryptonite.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that would be just a little interesting, something to think about.
On that same note, but seeping into Marvel now, very different talk,
Mm-hmm.
but we will soon get the introduction of adamantium in Marvel, right? It's not really an element that's been spoken of just yet. It hasn't even been mentioned. But vibranium has played the role of adamantium in a
It's a
couple of
part of
stories.
adamantium. That's what I understand.
What was that?
Like from my understanding, it's actually a part of adamantium.
I have actually never heard that. Is it really?
Yeah, someone or not someone. I read online to where in I forgot where it was, but it was like adamantium is made of a mixture of minerals that include vibranium. So if we were to choose which was stronger than the other, it's the other materials that kind of make it a little bit more indestructible and less because vibranium is really reactive to vibration. So I think that's what kind of makes it less reactive to vibrations. It's the other minerals that make it adamantium.
That is crazy. Because, okay, so we know that vibranium is not of Earth. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
We know that vibranium isn't detected by metal detectors. So we can assume that it's probably not something that someone like Magneto can manipulate. We do know, of course, that adamantium is something he can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting because obviously these two are going to now be brought up in the same world very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just really curious to see what, like, how the interaction. And we've talked a little bit about power rankings and weapons, and I feel like these are such big elements of that conversation. And so I definitely want to look into it because I actually have never heard that. That's really cool. And if that is the case, it's like it's just I have so many questions now at that point. But like I know, like for example, with Vision, like originally he was actually made with adamantium and not vibranium. But
Mm.
obviously, at the point of his introduction in the MCU, that's not something that Marvel had under its disposal because of Fox, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I mean I'm just very intrigued just having this whole conversation of Eternium. It kind of brought up that question for me.
Yeah, yeah. Like just from my understanding, just with everything that's kind of been mentioned, it just seems like all these raw materials are coming from either like an African continent or a would you say Kondak would be like in Africa? Would you assume or no? Or would you say that's like a Middle East type of situation?
I don't know. I'm
Even
actually
though
just
it
gonna
is
look it up.
fictional, who knows? I'm just
It
kind
is fictional, I think.
like I would think that Africa is the motherland of all raw materials, and I just remember uh, it was in uh, X Men Origins Wolverine. It was the initial team that Stryker put together. They went to an African country just to get. They didn't say they went to go get adamantium. They just said this is the material that we use to make adamantium.
Oh wow. Okay, that's very cool. And that material could very well be
Vibranium.
vibranium.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to answer that question in regards to Kondak, so Kondak is a country located in Middle East between Egypt and Palestine, Israel, on the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula.
Mm.
It is the homeland of anti-hero Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I definitely got like Egyptian vibes from it, but I wasn't too sure. So
Sure.
yes, like that area, you
It's
know,
in
and
that
so
area. Yep.
it's in that. It's kind of smack in the middle because like Egypt is Egypt part of Africa?
It sure is. It's at the top.
Sure is, right? Okay, yeah. So basically, yes and yes
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm excited because I did not know that about adamantium, and so if that is the case, I feel like it almost brings vibranium into the conversation of that exact scene you were talking about because they inadvertently may have been talking about exactly that, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah,
So it's exciting.
and I've changed the screen from Black Adam, but just to kind of continue on to that, just as far as predictions going into Black Panther, and we're kind of talking about how different factions are kind of taking vibranium from Wakanda or whatnot. So it would make sense if there was a faction out there that got a hold of it to somehow formulate adamantium, and then later on down the line, here we go with Wolverine and I forgot the other woman that they had like the same powers as Wolverine. But that was pretty much. I don't know if it was his girl. No, it wasn't his girl in X2. It was somebody. Oh, it was
It,
Stryker's assistant in X2.
yes, but
Yeah.
she's meant to be that same girl we see in Logan. It's meant to be an adaptation of her. Obviously, they've kind of played with it. The one who's basically biologically Logan's daughter.
Are you sure? Because I thought the character in X2, it's not Weapon. I forgot the name of the girl, but I'm thinking that's Lady Deathstrike, because there's a story in the comics with Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike to where Lady Deathstrike had like the similar characteristics of the long fingers that he fought against.
Oh, you know what?
And stuff
I
like
am
that.
wrong then. Yes, yeah, you're just kidding. I'm completely wrong. Just kidding. Scratch that last. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
I must have gotten that confused. But I was gonna mention something in regards to what you were just saying. I want to just highlight exactly what you just said because I loved that theory. And I think it's such a great way to kind of connect the X-Men, but not just yet. Kind of how She-Hulk did, but obviously that was more bluntly stated. But just to start having those conversations because, you know, like you said, Black Panther, the premise is that there's all these countries that are going after vibranium, you know, and it's exactly the same conversation they had in the original film, and the fear of, you know, exposing the reality of what Black or what Wakanda has. And so that's very well a way for them to kind of do it, like maybe in a post-credit scene or maybe in the council. You know, we hear a side regard of like, oh, people manipulating or using or, you know, tampering with vibranium to create something different, you know. And so I see this like as such a connection or a segue into that exact thing. That's I love that.
If we get a post-credit scene of Black Panther to where everything is good, Wakandans and Atlanteans are living in harmony, but it ends with a post-credit scene of William Stryker finding a shipment of vibranium and then cut, you know, right then and there. It's like, there it is.
Or even less, even more like minutely, like maybe we're getting a pan of like a desk and we see like a nameplate that says something, I don't know, his initials, Stryker, and then we see a test tube, and the test tube's like, you know, we see like things that are recognizable as vibranium, and then we see something that has labeled like with adamantium. You know, like any variation of that, I feel like that makes sense. We're gonna get a Wong cameo, and we're gonna get a direct adamantium reference in Black Panther. We have spoken.
Okay. All right. I think we've wrapped Black Adam. Again, it falls into it, like, I'm giving it a B. It's not bad. It's a good superhero movie. It's just in terms of DC, it could be better. And I feel like if anything, me giving DC a B movie, giving it a B is good in our book.
It's great, yeah. So it's satisfactory, and for DC, we're rooting for you. Yeah. We are rooting for you. The future is bright for DC, and I'm excited. So
awesome,
absolutely.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. I'm just gonna go in for the close if that's all right.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Go. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Comic Cinematic Universe with Chill and Grace. We'll be back next Friday. Next Friday, just confirm possible filler. Yes, no. We're gonna get back into Daredevil next Friday. What do you think?
Yes, yeah. Maybe some extra Ant-Man and like Guardians talk if like there's extra things we missed from today. But yeah, I think we're gonna go back into our Daredevil breakdown. So hopefully breaking down episodes 2 and 3. Obviously, if the schedule changes, we will let you guys know. But that's the expected schedule for this upcoming Friday.
Awesome, sounds good. So, Grace, thank you. I will catch you next week. You have a great weekend. And
you too.
Yeah, everybody else for tuning in. Thank y'all for tuning in. And again, Marquise, what up, man? If you happen to tune in, I appreciate the love at the gas station, man. That was pretty awesome. So shout out to our new follower. Yeah.
Without context, if someone just listened to that last part, like, thank you for the love at the gas station.
Pause. Okay. Sorry, guys. So I did. No, okay, I was gonna do a quick synopsis real quick, but either way.
Let them watch the beginning if they want to know.
I'm just gonna clip that part, pause, and then put it on Instagram. But anyway.
Yeah, that was so good. All right, guys.
Yeah, we'll catch you all next week. Have a great weekend.